Hey everybody, it's Crypto-Anarchist here. Now, there's something we gotta talk about today. I keep telling you guys that all these crypto YouTubers are a bunch of dumbasses just by watching their videos, and I try to avoid watching their videos because it just gets it's really bad how little that they know. But there's somebody who I have to call out specifically in this rant video because he's just spreading so much terrible fucking information. Like, I don't know how anyone believes that he understands like the first thing about crypto. I'm not sure he's ever read a single white paper, to be completely honest. His name is Data Dash. His real name's Nicky, something like that. But anyways, little Nicky here. He really hates Bitcoin Cash. Now, I've said before, I called Bitcoin Cash something you should look into when the price was $323. So, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this. Everyone talks about how it pumped and dumped. Well, since I said, you should look into buying Bitcoin Cash, the price is 4 times what it was. So to say it's a pump and dump when people have been calling it out as a good buy, when the price was 1/4 of what it is today, kind of not very intelligent. So the things I really want you to know about little Nicky here is that first he says he's not upset at Bitcoin Cash. Okay, he says he's not upset at Bitcoin Cash, but then just watch his videos. He's got a couple of videos on this. The first one I want you guys to maybe look at is this one right here. And in this one, he's looking at the price of Bitcoin Cash. Now, I want you to look at his posture. I do a lot of studying into body language and things like that. What is his body language telling you right here? He's very nervous and afraid. Right now, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt has gotten to him. You'll see if you actually watch his videos that he believed for a little bit. He believed that Bitcoin Cash was going to overtake Bitcoin over the course of a weekend through market manipulation. He believed it. Now, I don't know how stupid you have to be to think that a currency like Bitcoin Cash, which has been out for 4 months, is going to overtake Bitcoin, which has been out for a decade, over a weekend. Like over a weekend. But he actually believed this, and you'll see it in later videos of his, like this video right here. If you guys look up this video, he talks about how Bitcoin Cash was trying to steal the Bitcoin brand, and he goes through into points on it where he's like, who is adopting Bitcoin Cash, and it's like Bitcoin Cash didn't really gain any legitimacy until this weekend. So you really think that exchanges are going to adopt it? Do you think users are going to adopt it over a weekend? Over a weekend? I mean, how stupid do you have to be to think that, oh, hey, all these exchanges, everyone who accepts Bitcoin, they're all going to switch over to Bitcoin Cash over a weekend? Man, like that is retarded. Coinbase isn't even going to start accepting, or payments or trades in Bitcoin Cash until the beginning of next year. So, I don't know why he thinks that Bitcoin Cash was going to take off over the weekend. Obviously, he reads a lot of 4chan biz threads and Reddit threads where the people who buy Bitcoin Cash, obviously that's what they're saying, like, oh, the cashing is happening and it's going to happen this weekend. What makes you think that Reddit and biz threads are legitimate? Are you that stupid? The thing about Bitcoin Cash is it's a long-term play. It's a long-term play based on the fact that if you look at these things that Bitcoin Cash is doing, the only thing that Bitcoin Cash is doing is it's trying to revert to Satoshi Nakamoto's his original vision for what Bitcoin was supposed to be. Now, I'm going to bring, again, I got more evidence of this. So when you talk about, Data Dash talks about Bitcoin Cash, the first thing that he never mentions this even once. So I gotta explain this, I guess, before I go into the information that Satoshi gives. But Data Dash, this guy, little Nicky here, he's so stupid that he has not even once, in all of his videos on Bitcoin Cash, he has never once mentioned the fact that Bitcoin Cash is the only cryptocurrency. And just so you guys know, as of right now, there's 1,279 cryptocurrencies that exist on CoinMarketCap. Okay, 1,279 cryptocurrencies that exist on CoinMarketCap. Now, if there's 1,279 currencies And Bitcoin Cash is the only one that plans on scaling globally on the blockchain. That's kind of significant because I can't even name a single other cryptocurrency that it's the only one in something. There's a couple zero knowledge cryptocurrencies. I've talked about those, whether they use, the zero coin protocol or the zero cash protocol. There's a couple of each one of these. There's a couple of basically every type of cryptocurrency. But Bitcoin Cash is the only cryptocurrency whose roadmap is completely committed to scaling globally on the blockchain. They don't want to use Lightning whatsoever. Okay, and if you think like, oh, I don't know what I'm talking about with this, Bitcoin Cash literally has tested out a network using 1 gigabyte blocks, which gives them the transaction capability of 3 times that of Visa. Okay, 3 times that of Visa. Okay, that's how many transactions Bitcoin Cash is planning on using in the future. At least they're testing it out now. They're planning on being able to be capable of handling that many transactions, 3 times that of Visa, all on the blockchain. Okay, all on the blockchain. Now, why is it that they don't like Lightning? Well, Lightning was never Satoshi's vision. Okay, if you look at this, there's a couple things Satoshi got wrong when he was originally creating Bitcoin. One is he thought that Moore's law would apply to things like your average computer's memory. So he thought that over several years your computers would scale with the network. But in this, I'll let you read this yourself. He talks about the amount of bandwidth it would cost to move 100 gigabytes per block. That's the size of 12 DVDs or 2 HD movies. He's talking about this being the size of a block. Okay, 100 gigabytes. 100 gigabytes. Now, I said Bitcoin Cash tested out a 1 gigabyte network, so, they didn't even go to the full capability that Satoshi's talking about, but 100 gigabytes. That's what Satoshi thought, the size of the block should be eventually. All right? So everyone who's saying, oh, it's not supposed to be that size, no, it is. That's the one thing Satoshi got wrong, is he thought everyone's regular computer would be able to handle it. He thought Moore's law would continue to apply. Now, if you go further, some people will try and use this right here. This is something that it's not an exact quote from Satoshi. It's people who talk to Satoshi talking about it. But Satoshi had planned on using something similar to a Lightning network, but it's completely different because the way the Lightning network works is that you use something called end-lock time, and so you basically do a transaction that's open-ended, and you can just keep replaying the transaction over and over again without actually transmitting it to the blockchain until at a final point you finally close it out. Now, when Satoshi was talking about using the end-lock time function, he was talking about using it between sets of parties. Okay, people who already have an agreement set up before them, people who do trading directly in between each other. So this would be like if Deutsche Bank, they do massive trades with, big other banks like JP Morgan Chase. If they wanted to open an account that used this end-lock time function between each other, then they could just do, an infinite amount of transactions, and then, or not infinite, let's say they do 1 million transactions a day. I don't know what it would be, but let's say they do 1 million transactions a day. They only have to put one over or send one over the blockchain. Okay, so the difference between this setup and the Lightning Network is that in this setup that Satoshi talks about, the two parties are directly involved, so all the transactions are done between themselves, so they still have records of all of it. They don't actually transmit it to the blockchain, so it's just private records of it, but they have a direct relationship with the person that they're using this one-way Lightning Network with. Okay, because what Satoshi was talking about was a one-way Lightning Network. Now, what is being implemented for the Lightning Network on Bitcoin Core is that they're taking Satoshi's idea and they're moving it sideways. They're moving it laterally. What I mean by that is that they're not going to do this between parties directly. They're going to do this between everybody, so when you actually pay somebody, you have no idea how it got there. Now, that is completely different than Satoshi's vision because you don't have any direct relationship with how the payment gets there, so you don't get to see it on the blockchain. Like, there's no evidence of this for you. You just have to trust the Lightning Network. Now, if I remember correctly, Bitcoin was supposed to be a trustless system. Okay, it's supposed to be trustless, but Lightning makes it so that you have to trust whoever runs the Lightning Network. So this is not Satoshi's vision. Now, again, I've said this before, I haven't sold out my Bitcoin for Bitcoin Cash. I've never sold my Bitcoin Cash either because I'm not a dumbass. I'm assuming Data Dash has, or he got in late enough that he doesn't have any Bitcoin Cash. But he doesn't bring this stuff up. He doesn't bring up the fact that Satoshi, he never wanted Lightning in the way that it's being created, and he did expect massive block sizes in the way Bitcoin Cash is being created. Now again, he thought that everyone would have big enough computers to do this to some extent. He thought that everyone would have big enough computers to do this. The other thing is then I have this on, I've got this on my other video, and I'll bring it up for this one too, but Satoshi actually believed that you would use server farms with specialized hardware to run nodes, okay, so that nodes would feed the rest of the farm. Okay, so even though he sort of expected computers to grow with the network, even if it didn't, he didn't really care. And this went for both mining and for running nodes. That eventually he realized that he was wrong about how quickly computer sizes would increase and computer capacity would increase, and he said, we're just going to have server farms. So this is literally exactly what Satoshi talked about with Bitcoin Cash. Now again, Bitcoin Cash, if they ever implement the Lightning Network the way Bitcoin does, it should die. It should absolutely die. They could implement a one-way Lightning Network because that's what Satoshi talked about, and Bitcoin Cash is committed to Satoshi's vision. But Data Dash never even brings up any of this. Little Nicky here, he never brings up one of these points ever. Okay, so let me ask, he goes on, I guess, he goes on and he says that he wants the SEC to regulate Bitcoin to stop things like Bitcoin Cash from happening. Let's think about this. Bitcoin Cash is the only coin committed to scaling globally on the blockchain. So, Little Nicky, can you answer this for me? If I can't buy Bitcoin Cash if I'm looking into a coin that follows Satoshi's vision of scaling globally on the blockchain, where do I go? Where do I go? Can you name the coin? Because Bitcoin Cash, as of right now, it's the only one that I know of. Maybe there's some new altcoin that just came out trying to copy Bitcoin Cash, but I don't know of it. So please tell me, Little Nicky, where do I go? Where do I go? Because I want a coin that scales globally on the blockchain. Now, I haven't sold out of my Bitcoin because I know that it's not either or thing, okay? I've told you guys before, if you really want to understand this stuff, listen to what the original cypherpunks say about this. So this is a tweet from Andreas Antonopoulos. Okay, Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash will coexist and serve different use cases. So now again, Little Nicky keeps telling all of his user base that Bitcoin Cash is trying to steal the Bitcoin name. They're not even the same thing. Like, this guy is an original person who worked on Bitcoin, Andreas Antonopoulos. And you keep saying that Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash are, Bitcoin Cash is trying to steal what Bitcoin does. They serve different use cases, okay? So Bitcoin's going to scale globally using the Lightning Network, which means it's going to scale globally off the blockchain. And Bitcoin Cash is going to scale globally on the blockchain. So they're completely different coins. Completely different coins. Okay, now he's so stupid he doesn't understand this. Why does anybody watch him? The other thing too is he's like, oh, Bitcoin Cash was clearly manipulated. It's clearly a manipulated coin. How do you put a coin on crypto, as far as cryptocurrencies are concerned, into second place? How do you do that? And this is why I think there's a big bear market coming as far as Bitcoin is concerned, because this whole little civil war that these people are pushing makes them, one, look like complete fucking idiots because they have no idea what they're talking about, and two, it's going to put off all the new investors because he's literally saying in his videos that the coin that got up to number 2 in the cryptocurrency sphere got up to a market cap of around 40 billion, I think, at its peak. He's like, yeah, that's complete manipulation. Whoa, bud, imagine somebody looking at your video and they're like, okay, so I've never known anything about cryptocurrencies, and they look at that video and they're like, oh, this is a complete scam market. Like, that's literally what he's saying. And he keeps saying it's a scam market, again, because he's never read the white paper. He's never read anything that Satoshi Nakamoto has come up with. I mean, this guy's a complete fucking dumbass. If he would have read it, maybe he actually reads it, like he reads the words, but he has no reading comprehension, because Satoshi literally talked, he talked about 100 gigabyte block sizes, 100 gigabyte block sizes in server farms that would connect the rest of the network to all the transactions that have been done. Man, is Little Nicky a bit of a dumbass. But the other thing too is that he says like this is some sort of pump and dump. So let's look at the chart for Bitcoin Cash. Now again, I think my video that I came out with on Bitcoin Cash, it was October 21st. The price, I think it was October 21st. You can check it yourself. But the price of Bitcoin Cash at that time was $323. So let me ask little Nikki something. When the smart money, the people who understand this, are saying, Bitcoin Cash is something you really need to look into at a price of $323, if I bought it then, I'm up 4 times my money. I'm up 4 times my money. The other thing you got to understand is there's a lot of people out there who are, a lot more active in their trading than me, that are just as smart as me or smarter than me. So they probably did buy in there at the price of $323. Now he says when the price hit $2,400. This is back to one of his videos, the one where he's scared like a little girl sitting up on his tippy toes, trying to hide his face. You can just see the fear pouring through his body. When this started to crash from $2,400, he says this is evidence of pure manipulation. This indicates that little Nicky here doesn't understand trading, because if you bought in at $323 and the price went up to $2,400 over the course of the month, do you think you might just maybe cash out a little bit because you expect a correction? Do you think? Little Nicky doesn't think so. He doesn't understand what a correction is. He thinks, oh, once it starts going up, it's got to keep going up forever and ever and ever. Well, it's still up 4 times what the price was when I called it out. It's still up 4 times what the price was when I called it out. But little Nicky here, he doesn't understand the correction, yet he's still got a bunch of followers, and now he keeps saying this is a pump and dump and market manipulation. Well, I want to remind you guys something. Little Nicky here came out with a video on Chainlink when the price was 37 cents. What's the price now, little Nicky? It's 19 cents. So how good do you think your followers are doing on that one? This one looks like a real pump and dump. So I really want to know, little Nicky, did you pump and dump Chainlink just to sell off on the idiot followers that you have? Did you sell it at a price higher than $37? Did you buy it at a price lower and then sell it off on your unsuspecting followers? Because if you did that, I would actually have more respect than you being too stupid to understand what a pump and dump Chainlink was, how stupid of an investment Chainlink was. Because again, I do the math on this on a video. If you look at the transaction fees that MasterCard gets, it's $3 billion a year. If you then do the math and you say, okay, let's assume that 10% of all of the transactions done on the cryptocurrencies, let's assume that all 10% of those are smart contracts, so 10% of 3 billion, if you're assuming 3 billion is about as high as Chainlink can go, because if it gets up to the size of MasterCard, that would be massive. But 3 billion, 10% of 3 billion is 300 million, and then you look at, okay, so who's doing the processing power for the transaction? Chainlink doesn't actually do anything for the transaction. All it does is a connection to outside data, so that's literally basically no processing power involved for Chainlink. So you can assume that the transaction fees Chainlink charges will be about 1/100th the size of the transaction fee for the entire transaction. So what's 1/100th? Or actually, let's not even do 1/100th. Let's just do 1/10th. Let's make it a much nicer for Chainlink. Let's say the transaction fee Chainlink charges is 1/10th the transaction fee of the entire transaction. So we were at 300 million. 1/10th of 300 million is 30 million. Whoa, 30 million. That's what you can expect Chainlink to make in a year. Now, if you know anything about pricing of a company, the price to earnings ratio, you want it to be about 7. So the total price of the company you can estimate to be at 7 times 30 million. That's 210 million. And that's if it hits maximum capacity and has the capacity similar to that of MasterCard. 210 million. So what's the price of Chainlink right now, boys? It's right under 20 cents. There's going to be 1 billion tokens created, and the tokens are in, that's ownership of the company. So it's already at max value before it has any customers or any transactions running through it. Good call there. Good call there, little Nicky. And you called it out as a good investment when it was, 37 cents. So the price was already over what you can expect its max to ever become. Good call, little Nicky. You're not pump and dumping your followers. No way, no way. But, this just goes back to my point. These guys who make videos on this shit, they're complete fucking idiots. Complete idiots. This guy, little Nicky here believes that the market was manipulated because he didn't see this coming, and he expected, he was reading a bunch of 4chan Biz articles, I'm assuming, and Reddit articles, and he assumed that, all these people who bought into Bitcoin Cash, obviously they're saying, oh, the cashing is happening because they want it to happen. You really think those are the authority figures in Bitcoin? in the cryptocurrency space, like you believe them because they said it. But again, go back and look at the fear. Look at the fear in his posture, in the way he's watching these charts. In this video here, I'm going to go show this picture again. Look at the fear in his posture. Okay, he is bleeding with fear here. So he actually believed this stuff. He believed that Bitcoin Cash was going to take over Bitcoin over a weekend. But to finally, wrap this all up, this is what you really need to know about Bitcoin Cash and why it's a good long-term play. It's still a good long-term play at this price. Now, generally speaking, I've been investing all my money in alts. Some of my alts have started to really take off, so it's really paying off for me now. But I'm actually thinking about throwing money into Bitcoin Cash now, because of the videos you've seen. You know that I know Bitcoin or any coin like it, and since Bitcoin Cash is a direct fork of Bitcoin, it's going to have the same problems as Bitcoin does. It's going to run into problems around 2030 when the inflation rate hits 1%. It's going to hit massive problems as far as being a currency. But for Bitcoin Cash, the one thing that I said that Bitcoin Cash could do to Bitcoin to kill it would be to steal all its miners. Now, I don't know how many of you are aware, but they just recently changed the algorithm for the mining difficulty on Bitcoin Cash. The reason why they did this was there's wild swings in in how quickly the difficulty was, or no, not in how quickly the difficulty was adjusted, but there were wild swings in Bitcoin Cash's hash rate. This just came because of the fact that it's basically the only thing competing with Bitcoin for mining, and basically the way that miners work is they mine the most profitable coin in the immediate sense, and then they sell that for the coin that they want. This is literally encoded into most miners. That's how they run, is that they are encoded and programmed so that they will mine the most profitable coin and sell it for the coin of your choice. The reason why miners do this is because you've got to make enough money by the time that your miner wears out to buy a new miner. So you can't spend all your time mining a coin you believe in, even if the price is low, because then you won't be able to buy your new coin or your new miner by the time your miner wears out. Sometimes you can if you're good enough in predicting where the price is going to go, but these are short-term predictions which are very hard to do, so most miners don't make these predictions, and instead they literally focus on whatever is immediately profitable. So what Bitcoin Cash did to its difficulty algorithm is now the difficulty algorithm just always tries to be mined every 600 seconds. Now I know eventually that's what happens over the long term with Bitcoin, but Bitcoin Cash's algorithm, it changes the difficulty a lot more frequently. So why is this a big problem for Bitcoin? Because Bitcoin right now can't really be used for transactions because the transaction fees are way too high. Okay. Now the problem with this is that you saw what happened when there was a transaction backlog on Bitcoin, right? When there's a transaction backlog on Bitcoin, the price drops dramatically because people try to move their Bitcoin, and a lot of them get stuck and they freak out. They don't know what's going on. I think a lot of Coinbase transactions and stuff like that, they were taking hours upon days sometimes. It was ridiculous how long a lot of these Bitcoin transactions were taking. So what happens, as long as the Bitcoin price keeps increasing, nothing will happen. Nothing will go wrong. But as soon as Bitcoin price starts decreasing, what happens? Because Bitcoin's difficulty only adjusts every 2140 blocks, if the price of Bitcoin decreases, it makes it more profitable to mine Bitcoin Cash. So more miners will move over to Bitcoin Cash. Let's say there's a 5% decrease in the price of Bitcoin. That happens all the time. Okay, so that if there's a 5% decrease in the price of Bitcoin, then it becomes less profitable to mine Bitcoin. And then if you switch over to Bitcoin Cash, what you will see is that the difficulty of mining Bitcoin itself will not change. So if the difficulty does not change on Bitcoin mining, yet the price has decreased, then for the next, however long it is until the next difficulty adjustment, you will be not making as much money as you would be if the difficulty were adjusted more frequently. Now, because Bitcoin Cash is adjusted more frequently, it will always reflect a better market value for as far as the mining is concerned. It'll be a more fair market value as far as the mining is concerned. So if Bitcoin's price decreases by 5%, you will see miners switch over to Bitcoin Cash, and then Bitcoin itself, until the difficulty adjusts, will not be profitable to mine. It will not be as profitable to mine. So this is sort of a negative feedback loop, because if it's not as profitable to mine because the difficulty is not adjusting, then more miners will go over to Bitcoin Cash, and then if more miners go over to Bitcoin Cash, again, what you will see is a transaction backlog on Bitcoin, and if there's a transaction backlog on Bitcoin, what happens to the price? the price will decrease. And if the price decreases more, again, what happens? More miners switch over to Bitcoin Cash, and there's more of a transaction backlog. Now, again, this will sort of get fixed every difficulty readjustment because the difficulty readjustments are so slow and so far in between with Bitcoin, this could be a negative feedback loop that leads to the next Bitcoin bear market. Now, I said this in my video, when I said the price of Bitcoin is unjustifiable, something that could kill it is Bitcoin Cash stealing its miners. I said it's a bit of a complicated thing to do, and it depends, on how the developers figure everything out. But the Bitcoin Cash developers made a huge play when they did this. Okay, this is a huge play. Now again, it's more complicated than just that, than just having a negative feedback loop. This alone isn't enough to kill Bitcoin, but this is not a good sign for Bitcoin. It's not a good sign at all, and it's what's making me interested in potentially throwing down some of my fiat reserves into Bitcoin Cash. Now, I generally speaking don't really like buying these high-priced coins because in the long term their viability is not that great. Because once the inflation rate gets low enough, it'll be easy and profitable to perform a 51% hack attack. Now, again, the one thing that makes Bitcoin Cash very interesting to me is it literally could steal all of Bitcoin's miners and create this transaction backlog if the price of Bitcoin starts dropping over the long term, if the trend of Bitcoin's price drops. And this, again, this is just another math problem. It's just if the price of Bitcoin drops, it's more profitable to mine Bitcoin Cash, and since the difficulty won't adjust on Bitcoin for 2,140 blocks, which is, 21,000 minutes basically. That's a long time for Bitcoin mining to be undervalued, for there to be less of an incentive to mine Bitcoin than there should be just because the difficulty adjustment on Bitcoin is poor. Okay, and so this could create a very negative feedback loop that could create more transaction backlogs, higher fees, which would again drop the price of Bitcoin, and this could be a very bad negative feedback loop for Bitcoin. Again, it's a little more complicated than that, but the thing that I hate about these YouTubers like Little Nicky here is they never bring this stuff up. Okay, this guy tries to pretend like he's unbiased. Now, I've told you guys I am completely biased because I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm not going to lie to you. But look at his reaction, the way he talks about Bitcoin Cash. Never says anything good about it. Says that the SEC needs to regulate Bitcoin Cash, or needs to regulate cryptocurrency so things like Bitcoin Cash can't happen. How is that an objective viewpoint? How is that unbiased? These little faggots need to go. And again, this guy keeps losing his viewer base massive amounts of money, so it doesn't really matter to me. And the way I make my videos, the way I get on top of people like this, it turns people off, and that's good for me because it keeps me making money. But I don't know why people listen to idiots like this. Like, if he's too stupid to understand that Bitcoin Cash is the only cryptocurrency that scales globally, and if he's too stupid to understand that the way that Bitcoin Cash's mining algorithm is set up, as opposed to the way Bitcoin Core's algorithm is set up, could create a negative feedback loop for Bitcoin Core. Like, if he's too stupid to understand that, he deserves to lose all the money that he could potentially lose. Now, again, I own both coins because I understand they're different and they serve different functions, and I like the functions that both of them serve. But, Little Nicky's a bit of a dumbass, and he really needs to do his homework, especially because he's got so many followers, and he needs to take the responsibility. If you got this many followers, I don't care if you get your predictions wrong. People get predictions wrong. They do. My predictions haven't really been wrong at all, but, people get predictions wrong. So, if you got this many followers, you at least need to do your research, though, so that you're not putting out false information, and all you're doing is putting out blatantly false information. It's blatantly false. Blatantly false. He keeps saying this market is manipulated. He has no evidence for it. He says Bitcoin Cash is trying to steal a Bitcoin brand when it's not. It's going after cryptocurrency scaling from an entirely different angle. They're completely different coins. They're completely different. So I just don't understand how someone this stupid can have this many followers. And again, I think it's because there's a lot of stupid money in crypto right now, which makes me think it's in a bubble. I don't know if we're actually going to have a bear market again. I would love to see a bear market because it's just cheap coins for me. But, somebody like Data Dash, you really got to start doing your homework because your videos recently have been unbelievably embarrassing.